first and foremost, it was his job to meet with those kind of individuals, diplomats, and so on. So I don't think that's a problem. What I do think could be potentially a problem, especially from an optics standpoint, considering what we've seen with the Russians and the interference with the election, is the fact that he answered honestly, but he could have provided more information to the committee during his confirmation by saying, well, I've never met with them and discussed anything campaign related. However, I had met with them in my official capacity. That would have been appropriate.
Right. He told the truth, but perhaps not the whole truth. Gretchen, let me ask you, this outrage.
No, it was the whole truth, but he could have provided additional information.
It
was the entire truth.
That's not correct. What he did, there's two very different questions. One question is, did you meet at all with the Russians? The other question is, did you meet with the Russians to discuss the campaign? Very different questions. He basically answered no to both of those questions. So it isn't just about optics here. There's lies by omission as well as commission. Now, he didn't lie by saying, I never met with them in terms of the campaign. He did not make that lie, but he did make a lie of omission because he failed to include, yes, I met with them for other purposes, so I did meet with them, but we did not discuss the campaign. He definitely should have said that.
Right, and I think this is where it gets a little bit sticky because I'm not sure if anyone can really know whether this was an intentional omission on his part or whether it was not intentional, whether he was just caught off guard. Let me read his exact quote here because I think this is important. He said, I'm not aware of any of those activities. I have been called a surrogate a time or two in that campaign, and I did not have communications with the Russians. And Gianno, I mean, I would have to partially agree with Gretchen here. It was fairly ambiguous. I think it was the right thing for Sessions as Attorney General to recuse himself from the investigation. I don't necessarily believe he's lying, but I'm not sure that we are going to be able to have any proof what his intention was with that comment.
Well, like I said, from an optics standpoint, that it was inappropriate for him not to provide fuller information. However, when it comes to the recusal, I thought that was appropriate, and is much more than what we saw with the previous administration, meeting with Bill Clinton on the tarmac, the former Attorney General, and recusing herself, then jumping back into the investigation. So I was happy to see that. But what's really disturbing to me, what we're seeing from the Democrats, especially Senator Claire McCaskill, who said, and it was a tweet she sent out, she said, I'm the most forceful statement came from her, who tweeted that she had been on the Armed Services Committee for 10 years, no call or meeting with the Russian ambassador ever. And we found out that was a complete and total lie. She met with the Russian ambassador 2 to 3 times. So is there collusion going on behalf of Democrat senators who also met with the Russian ambassador 6 or 7 times?
Gretchen, let me turn to you because I think to Gianno's point, meeting with the legitimate ambassador from Russia is a very different thing, particularly for senators, than secretly colluding with the Russian government to hack Hillary Clinton's campaign. And that differentiation hasn't really been made by the left.
Right, and we can't parse out on this show tonight what was going on. That's why there is going to be an investigation, and that's why he took the appropriate steps and recusing himself from that investigation. That was absolutely appropriate that he do that, because sometimes the appearance of a conflict is what's damaging, not that there may be an actual conflict of interest. And so he did the right thing there. He made the right call. I applaud him for that. He does have that certain Southern gentleman way of talking. I understand that he may have not thought this through, giving him the benefit of the doubt, which is, again, what you do in a criminal case, for example. You give the defendant or someone who's being accused the benefit of the doubt, let them investigate, let him explain himself. That's all fine. I applaud the process.
Right, and I agree with that too. That going back to what Gianno said before, that's why I thought Attorney General Loretta Lynch should have recused herself from the investigation into Hillary Clinton after, intentionally or not, she met with Bill Clinton on that tarmac. Even if they only talked about their grandchildren, like they both claimed, the right thing for her to do would be to avoid the appearance of that conflict of interest. I want to show a short video here of, this was actually from One America's White House correspondent, Trey Yingst. He was talking to J.D. Gordon. J.D. Gordon was part of the national security team of Donald Trump's campaign. He and Carter Page, another official from the Trump campaign, are being looped into this now too. They're being accused of colluding with the Russians. Let's take a quick look at that.
This Global Partners in Diplomacy had a week with the Republicans in Cleveland. Then the same group of ambassadors went to Philadelphia to go to their convention, to the Democrat National Convention, to meet Hillary's campaign, to meet DNC staff. So a group of ambassadors, dozens, 50-some, spent time with us, but then they spent time with the Democrats.
Gianno, and I want to go directly to you on this. I mean, this accusation against J.D. Gordon, against Carter Page, was that they met inappropriately with the Russian ambassador, but this was a State Department-sponsored program that happened at the Republican National Convention, and then it also happened several weeks later, like J.D. said, at the Democratic National Convention, and this is where this investigation, to me, turns into a witch hunt, because the standards are not the same for the right and the left.
Well, no, 100% agree. And we're seeing that although some of the similar actions occurred, not just with this particular situation with the RNC and the DNC, but previous administrations, the most recent administration with their dealings with the Russians, with President Obama telling the former president of Russia, after my election in 2012, I'll have more flexibility. So we're not seeing the same, especially from the left, the same application of the rules and process being applied as they did with President Obama. They said it was no big deal for President Obama to make those comments. I think, you know, we've talked about this all throughout cable news on what was appropriate and what's not. And I'm troubled by the fact that they're making everything about politics at this point when we should be thinking about governing. And
Gretchen, last word to you here, and I want you to speak on this. I mean, is there a double standard at play here? Because that's very much what it appears to be.
I don't think there's a double standard. I think that the Republicans behave badly, obstructing everything that President Obama tried to do, and I would hate for the Democrats to start doing that now.
It's the same
standard.
No,
they're doing it too, and I agree with you, and I think they should not do it. But let's be fair, the Republicans did it, and that's what creates this partisan politics. That's what creates this sort of schoolyard fighting amongst these two political groups. They should cut that out, get down to business, work for the country, work for people to get the job done that we need done.
Democrats have been doing it for a long time. Right, it didn't just start.
Right, and I mean, I think that's more clear than ever after Trump's joint address to Congress, because it wasn't a partisan speech. It was a speech that Republicans and Democrats should both have been able to get on board. But the fact that we still see this bickering, it's becoming very clear to the American people that the parties in Washington are very partisan and don't necessarily represent the willingness of the American people to compromise. Gianno, Gretchen, thank you both so much for being here. It was great to talk to you.
Thank you.